timing. We're in good time. We have an hour and a half left. Okay. So with that being said, we're gonna skip because actually no, I do have something for you guys. So let's get started with our first segment because our first segment I'm gonna be talking and walking you through stuff that I discovered, right? An issue that I had with Mongo connection. Um, I don't know, like maybe some people here are more familiar with it, but I was not. So I had to figure this out on my own. It took me a while to figure it out, but we got it. So we are going to start our first 20-minute segment that can, tie into our icebreaker and stuff like that. And we'll get to it, right? So with that being said, let's get started. Actually, I need to move this timer thing up top. Let's go with showing off. There we go. Perfect. So let's get started with our very first segment of the show.
It's time to do.
Darcel says, "Be careful what you look for." That is too funny. All right. So I wanted to talk to you guys about AWS private link, right? AWS private link, and I'll show you around inside of the console. And I have an article. I'm trying to revamp my website because I have not been paying much attention to it. So a bunch of moving pieces. Time is limited. You have to prioritize the things that are more important. But I think the website is very important. But I have to make more time for that, right? So with that being said, let's start off with what issue was I having. So one of the issues that I was having was getting the how do you call it? Getting the Elastic Beanstalk, which we set up on here through Terraform and everything, like back in February. Getting that to talk to our Mongo Atlas database, right? So what happened is Mongo Atlas, and I'm using a serverless database. But what happens is Mongo sits separately from AWS. I don't know if Mongo uses AWS for its hosting. I don't know what they do, right? But it's in a different area. Let's say that it's in a different area, and they do have integration with AWS. But I needed to get my Elastic Beanstalk to actually connect to our Mongo Atlas serverless, right? And they just weren't talking to each other. It couldn't connect and everything like that. So what I ended up doing, and this is all through troubleshooting because this is like not how you're going to want to leave it, but I ended up saying accept all connections from any location for Mongo, which is bad because if somebody gets your username and password, then they're going to be able to connect to it, and it's bad cybersecurity. Ferris, don't at me, Ferris. Don't at me. Luckily, he's probably playing video games today, but but in troubleshooting, these are the things that you're going to have to do. You might have to temporarily give access to it, but you have to also make sure you don't forget that you gave access to it. Neither here nor there, right? So let me start sharing the screen, right? Let me see. Let me go to here and let me hide this column. That way. Let's go here. I don't want to share anybody's name. Let's go here. Give me a second. If that doesn't work, we're just going to get rid of it. All right, let's go with that. That didn't work out too well. All right, whatever. We're gonna just do. This stuff. Some of the ways that these people be writing HTML code can be super, super annoying sometimes. They don't. They don't. All right, whatever. So here's what I'll do. I will. All right. Anyways, so here's what we're gonna do. It was all right. So, and pretty much, I'll just share a different page. And let's go here. All right. Let me close that down. So here we go. Let's go here. All right. So this is Mongo DB Atlas. You know, they're hosting stuff, and pretty much in your network access, you can specify what IP addresses are able to connect to your like from what locations you can connect to your database, right? When you're connecting to your database. But the problem that because of the restriction and AWS being in their virtual private networks, you need to be able to give access to your AWS virtual private network, your load balancers, to your database, and vice versa. The database also needs to be able to send information back to your network, to your virtual private network. So the issue then is how do you give access to that? And the problem that I was having is unless I had gave access to all of the IP addresses or to any IP address, my AWS wasn't able to submit requests to the database. So I was trying to figure that out, and it turns out that there is move this up a little bit. There is something called a virtual private. Make this smaller a little bit. Move that up right there. Okay, so it is virtual private PrivateLink virtual private network endpoint, something like that, and we'll look into it a little bit more. But so I wanted to share with you guys what that actually is, so that if you ever run into a situation where AWS or whatever you're using on AWS needs to make an external call, you already know that, oh, you can probably use a private link. And there was one caveat at the end of it that I wasn't aware of that I'll also show you as well, right? So let's go and let's take a look at this, right? So what is AWS PrivateLink? And this is my website that I'm going to be making better, to be honest with you. Like it's been really crappy for the past year, but you know, agile methodology, make it work, make it better. It works, not the best, but I'm gonna make it better. Especially I have like some time off coming up next month, so I'm gonna spend that week, which I'm not gonna have like the greatest internet access to be able to live stream. I'll be spending that time revamping the website, making it much better, right? But let's find out, what is AWS PrivateLink? So to break it down, make it very easy for us to understand, because I don't like using these super technical terms. Imagine you have two houses. Your application is a house and a big neighborhood, the AWS cloud. Normally, if you want to send a message from one house to another, you might have to go out into the streets, the public internet, which can be risky because anyone can see your message, right? So AWS PrivateLink is like a private tunnel that connects your house directly, so your messages can stay safe and no one can see them, right? So, or let's say, for instance, right, you want to go to your neighbor's house, but you don't want to go out in the street. What if you have a gate that goes between your house and your neighbor's house, so that you don't have to go like through the front yard and everything like that? People see what's going on. You can just have that connection in the back, right? So that would be like a private connection. So, what are the key points for the private link? The private connection. Instead of sending data over the public internet, private link lets your applications talk to each other through a private, secure tunnel. Let me see if I can make this bigger as well. Let's go with that. All right. So, security. Your data stays safe because it doesn't travel on the public internet. It's like passing secret notes through a hidden tube instead of shouting across the street. It's simpler setup. Setting up the private tunnel is easier than building a complicated route or using extra tools to keep your data safe. Service endpoints. Think of endpoints as a special door in your house that connect the tunnel or to the tunnel. These doors let your application use the private tunnel to talk to each other. And AWS and partner services. Many AWS services like storing files and streaming data can use private links, including Mongo Atlas. Also, services from other companies that work with AWS can use it too. Yep, Mongo Atlas, right? So share securely. You can share this private tunnel with other people you trust, like sharing a secret path with friends without worrying about strangers getting in. And it saves money. Using the private tunnel can be cheaper than paying to send lots of data over the public internet, right? So some use cases, the main use case that we can speak about is being able to connect it with MongoDB. So connecting applications. If you have different parts of an application running in different spaces, they can talk to each other safely using a private link. Connecting to AWS services. If your company has its own data center but uses AWS for some services. PrivateLink lets you connect without going over the public internet. And then working with partners. If you work with other companies, you can use PrivateLink to share the data. So, I mean, whether you want to consider the Mongo Atlas as connecting applications or working with partners, pretty much the same thing at the end of the day, right? So, so how does it work? We create a service. So first you set up a service in AWS that you want to connect to, like setting up a special phone line, create an endpoint. Next, you create an endpoint, a special door in your VPC, your virtual private network, your house in the cloud to use that service, connect securely. PrivateLink is make sure your data travels through a private tunnel, keeping it safe and secure, right? So that's pretty much what the private tunnel is and how it works. Now I want to show you where, because I started down this path and I'm going to share with you the mistake that I ended up making in the process. All right. So if we go to, let me go to here. And we go here. So inside of Mongo, there is, inside of Mongo, there is, so under the network access over here, this is the IP list is where you can add different IP addresses. Then we have the private, we have the peering, VPC peering, but what we used was private endpoint. And in the private endpoint, you're going to, like, let's say you create a new endpoint. Then you are going to say, all right, I'm using a serverless instance. So you choose the database that you're using and you say confirm. And then you're going to say, so I'm going to cancel this, but so from AWS, you're going to choose what VPC you're using and the subnets for your VPC. And you're going to go through the whole process. It's going to create some type of, it's going to create this for you. Let me get rid of that. I don't know why this is showing available, but it's going to create this for you. And then you're going to pass that information somewhere else. And then it's going to give you it's going to give you this VPC endpoint. You're going to pass that information somewhere else. And then it's going to do a bunch of stuff, right? But I ended up doing this during the week because I had to do it during the week. I wanted to wait till Sunday, but I'm like, all right, our sprint is ending on Sunday. I don't have time to waste. So I have to do it now, right? But I can show you what I did. So if we go to, you're also going to see where it popped into my mind of make it work and then make it better, right? So if we go over here, now I had created this right here that says VPC endpoint. That's what we have to create. I imported my default VPC from AWS. And then I said, all right, so the resource is AWS VPC endpoint. And I give it a name. And we say the service name of this VPC endpoint. And then we say, so we have to create the VPC endpoint in AWS in order for it to be able to communicate with one another. So I said here, this is the VPC that we're using. The VPC endpoint for when you're connecting to an external provider is going to be interface. And so at this point right here, I wanted to use a data import of my subnet IDs. However, I was like, I'm not too familiar with this. And I'm like, you know what, let's see if it's going to work with the subnet IDs first. And then if it does, then we'll find out how we can just import it. And so that was the concept of make it work and then make it better because it went through. But here's the thing, after it went through, we're still having some issues getting the connection to actually work. So there is actually another thing that, so I could see AWS was and the Mongo, it says, you see, like if we look over here, it says that it's actually available, right? It says that it's available. This one, I don't know why this is here. Let me get rid of this one. Let's say terminate that one. All right. Had to make sure because I see terminate serverless. And I'm like, I don't want to terminate the database. It says delete private endpoint. Yes, we want to delete that one. We're going to keep this other one. All right. So after this connection is made, right? And you also have to configure inside of AWS your security groups in order to be able to, you got to configure your security groups in order to say, all right, this VPC, and maybe maybe we'll do another one. Maybe we'll do it. We'll end up doing it for, let's see, if we can get the ECS to work right, and we want to connect to that database and share the same data. Maybe we can get that to work right. So yeah, maybe that'll be an opportunity to set up a new one, right? But it might also just work with the existing one. I don't know, but no, it should, because we did create a new VP. We create a new VPC when we do that. So that might be an opportunity. We'll see. We'll find out. But I had to create a connection between this Mongo Atlas connection, like the security group for that endpoint, and the actual application that is running the Elastic Beanstalk. All right. So once those two were connected, I'm like, all right, so I removed the network access that allows everything else to come in. And then every time I try to connect, I'm getting an error. I'm like, what in the world is going on? So I swear, I tried to Google it, read the documentation. I could not find anything. And then there was this one little article that I found. I don't remember where it was, but it showed me that not only like you have to do this because that's a connection, you also have to go over to, let's see, database. And then when you click on connect, see, we actually have traffic going in and out right now. When you click on connect, hello. All right, what's going on? Let's see, refresh. All right, when you click on connect, and then you're gonna say, choose a connection type, right? So if I'm just connecting from my computer and I'm using my IP address, I would do standard connection. However, I'm using the private endpoint. So when I click on private endpoint, now it's going to ask me which one that I want to use. All right. And let me make sure there's not going to be any sensitive data showing here. Tired of changing passwords all the time. Let me see, choose connection method. All right. So right now I'm on choose connection method. So I'm going to say, let's say we go with drivers, make sure nothing else shows up over here. Let's go with that. This is a good thing about knowing how to use these tools, because I can just on the fly take out sensitive data. All right, so if we go back over here, so if we go back here, so now you see like it gives me the connection string. The difference is between what we had before. It adds this little part right here for private endpoint, because in the other one it doesn't have this right here, which makes it makes AWS not being able to connect to it. So after I had actually made this my connection string, then it was actually able to connect with no problem and stuff like that. So now, and then, so the way I confirm that is by removing the private endpoint, or not removing the access from anywhere, from any IP address. I removed that, and then I tested it out, make sure it's still working, and that was able to go through, which led us to being able to deploy today. We are fully using our database for the app, for the Poopy Pants Quotes app. So if we go here and we click on that, this quote right here is actually loading from our MongoDB, no longer from my ghetto implementation using the Google Sheet. It was great while it lasted, but hey, we're the tech guys. we are the tech savages. We are using a real live database. So if we go back over here, let me see. How old is this? Let's go to view monitoring. And we should be getting something like really soon, because we just made a request. But I don't know. Maybe we will, maybe we won't. Let's make another one. All right. If I had two options, to either be a 300-pound guy who sprayed for cockroaches and made $1,000 a month, or can totally just fail until I succeed. I love that quote. But yeah, so that was the key part of it, though. It was getting the right, like getting that new endpoint, because nowhere said about that.
Lunch break.
Nowhere said about getting that new endpoint, but we're able to figure it out, and here we are. Right. So I just wanted to share my trek and my mission. I already shared about the mistake about the, what do you call that thing? The oh, look at that. See, it just came through. The request that we made right there. Boom. See that? I'm kind of blocking it, but let me hide myself for a second here. Let me see. Let's hide myself. So, you see, like the request that we made just came through. So we are fully using the database to show on the website. So that is a major accomplishment by the Tech Barbarians. Allow me to reintroduce myself. So let's clap it up for the Tech Barbarians. All right, so we are at break, and let's do this. Let me see.
If you enjoyed the fascinating information shared in this video and you want more, be sure to hit the subscribe button to Tech Coach Ralph to be notified for new videos.